The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the NYRA BETS webinar for the Late Pick 5 on Cigar Mile Day, presented in association with Daily Racing Form. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, back with you. Very excited to go over this very cool sequence, sort of the last of these super cards in New York for 2017, a year that's seen such good racing in New York. And very happy to be joined today by two special guests, starting off with a frequent visitor to these handicapping sessions. You know him from the great work he does for DRF, both in video form and also in his analysis in the paper and online every racing day in New York. He's the New York handicapper, Mike Beer. Mike, what's happening?
Not too much, Pete. Thanks for having me back. I guess this will be the last one that we'll do this year for racing in New York, but it's a pretty good way to go out. Pretty good card on Saturday.
Yeah, not too bad. It took me a little while to warm to the whole super card concept, but now that we're a couple of years into it, I definitely do see the benefits of being able to have a day like this that you can really mark on your calendar and set aside. And I, for one, like it off of Thanksgiving weekend. This would have obviously been an impossible show to do last week. It's nice to be able to sit and chat about these races in a more focused way, getting the last big day in New York off of Thanksgiving weekend. Our second guest today, I've broadcast a show or two with him over the years, but funny enough, he hasn't been too involved in the NYRA BETS handicapping sessions that we've done. This despite his being an avid participant in the NYRA circuit and a frequent visitor to Saratoga. You know him, you love him. He's the people's champ. He's Jonathon Kinchen. JK, what's up?
Yeah, when we have NYRA stuff, you guys bring in the A team. I'm just a B team guy. So I don't make it. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
We reached down the far end of the bench to bring in JK, but of course, those who know his work, his credentials in the contest world know he belongs in the starting lineup whenever possible. Well, gentlemen, this day of racing, in addition to what we were saying about it before, it's also the return of the NYRA BETS Pick 5. NYRA BETS, of course, our sponsor for this show tonight. Lots of special offers you can go check out at NYRABETS.com. No promotion they've done has proven to be any more popular than the NYRA BETS Late Pick 5. I know a lot of people opened their NYRA BETS accounts for Saratoga just to play this wager, and it's cool to have it back on this day. And I think to guide us through the next 40 minutes or so, we'll be talking about these races. We'll just dive right into that Pick 5. It starts with the sixth race, which according to my daily racing form goes at 2:06 Eastern. Does that match with what you guys have heard? I know there was some back and forth about post times on this card. Is that what we're seeing, 2:06 for starters?
I got 2:06 with an 11:30, right? 11:30 first post and 2:06 for race 6. That's what I have.
Excellent. It's the Gopher Wand. It's a grade 3. Mike, why don't you start us off? I know you've got a strong opinion in here to maybe start off a little skinny in this NYRA BETS Late Pick 5.
Yeah, I did feel that way. If only, for me personally anyway, not only do I like the likely favorite in the race, Jameson and Ginger, I just, the way this Pick 5 sequence lays out, there are, two races in the sequence that, I personally am just going to have to do some spreading. And one of those is actually the Cigar Mile to end the card, which I just think is open to, several different horses. And then, we'll get to the seventh race eventually. That's a race I have no idea who's going to win. I like Jameson and Ginger as a horse. I think she's a good horse. I think she's been a good horse right from the start. You can go back and look at her 103 buyer that she earned for breaking her maiden last year and go, well, a little fluky, right? She won by 15 off of a pair of, mid to upper 60 buyers in her first two starts, and it was a sloppy track to boot. It's probably a little phony, and I'm not so sure that that's the case. I think that this horse actually ran really well in her first two starts with some trouble, won that race, acquitted herself really well in two tougher races after that, going longer around 2 turns, which I don't think that she necessarily loves. And she's come back this year just a better horse, I think. I like her win last time, and I know that she got a perfect trip. And there's a way to look at her and say, maybe she's not really a triple-digit buy a horse, but I think that she is. I think that she was good even with that trip last time. And I think her first start for Chad is a little underrated. She did an awful lot of sort of heavy lifting early in that race, taking on challenges and still won. So I just think that she's a good horse, and I'm going to sort of lean on her in this race. I'm not way against Highway Star, who is obviously a good horse, likes Aqueduct, likes the one-turn mile, all that stuff, wants to beat you, really cool horse. I'm just not so sure that Jameson and Ginger might not be a little better than her. Highway Star, I don't care about her Breeders' Cup. She didn't run that day. I don't care. I think she'll run better Saturday, but I still prefer the one. And if I take a backup, and I kind of, part of me wants to take a small, 50-cent backup ticket and fool around with going for Broke, Chad's other horse. And that's, mostly just because she'll be a price, and I have a thing for her. I liked her a lot last year as a 3-year-old. I particularly like the way she started her career. I think she's a one-turn 7 or 8 furlong horse. I get why they stretched her out and tried the grade 1 races that she really couldn't win. But I don't think she wants to go, 9 and 10 furlongs. I think those are the wrong distances for her. I wish she had run better last time. I was really disappointed with how she ran in her most recent start, a race that she was supposed to win. But Chad kind of stopped on her. It looks like she's training really well again, coming back into this race. It looks like he worked her in company actually last time in that Bullet with Jameson and Ginger. She's just the kind of horse, maybe this will be too tough for her, but I kind of want to use her on at least one ticket at a halfway decent price as a backup.
I think you'll be rewarded in price, that's for sure. JK, you're more of a Tito's and soda guy, but what do you think of Jameson and Ginger here?
Well, I just like adult beverages in general, so I have supported any adult beverage horse name. So Jameson and Ginger is good with me. I feel the same way that Mike does. I think that she's going to be tough in this spot. I think Rudy, she was always meant to be a good horse. She ran big when she ran big. She ran a big race at Saratoga her first start, even though she didn't run that. I mean, she ran third, but she still ran well. And she was always meant to be a good horse. Now she's in Chad's barn. And I think that most people that have been following the Aqueduct meet might be aware of the fact that not every day, but the rail hasn't been the I can't wait to get there rail that sometimes we find in Aqueduct in the winter. And so I'll give her a little bit of extra credit for being kind of buried down inside. So I think if I'm going to play this pick 5, it's going to be similar for me, a single A horse with Jameson and Ginger. I would probably use Highway Star as a B just on class alone and how game she is. I think she just kind of got a little shocked last time in the Breeders' Cup, Philly Mare Sprint, going against those horses. And that pace was supersonic. And no, she wasn't on it, but she was near it. And near it enough that I think that she would have felt the effects and had every right to come back up a little bit. And the other horse that I'm going to maybe fool around with is a seahorse or a little bit of an underneath horse is Indulgent, the 7 for Kieran McLaughlin, a horse that's a half to Frosted. We all know what Frosted could do at a one-turn mile. The same idea is that this horse is obviously well bred. They've had big expectations running her in stakes in the past. And she's one that's second off a layoff, stretching out, and was buried down inside on that rail that we mentioned at Aqueduct that hasn't been ideal. I'll give her a little bit of a chance to improve at what should be a pretty big price.
All right, let's move on to the 7th race. Just by looking at the race conditions here, seeing that we're looking at 2-year-old fillies turf sprinting, the word chaos pops into mind. Is that how you see it, JK? Is this one where you'll be spreading in the NYRA Bets late pick 5?
Yeah, these are the turf sprints. I'm a fan of them. I'd prefer them not be maidens because I'd like to have a little bit of form. But yeah, this is a spread situation. Just to kind of throw out a few ideas. Martin Garcia is going to catch one of these New York fields off guard with his aggressiveness that he's picked up on the West Coast when so often it feels like these East Coast riders are all looking at each other to see who's going to take the lead. Obviously you got to consider Silverado Mist with Jose and Mott. And then the one horse that I also thought was a little bit interesting in this spot was Scatback. Going to kind of get back on the turf, was in for 50 last time, but showed some speed early. They didn't go that quick on the dirt last time, but I think that horse with Javier could be a little bit more forwardly placed. This is one of those races where, like Mike said, I've got a single in the last. It looks like I got a single in the first. This is one of those I'm going to cast a wide net and try to stay alive.
And when you talk single, JK, you're talking about lone A using the ticket maker methodology, yes?
In the last, it's going to be a stone cold A and a head-to-head facial hair bet if you're looking down the road yet.
We'll talk about that on the DRF Players Podcast tomorrow. I don't know if I can stand that horse to have ridiculous facial hair for a week like you had to after the QE2, but we'll save that debate. We'll put a pin in that debate and bring it back up on the DRF Players Podcast tomorrow at 11. Mike, who are going to be some of your uses here in this tricky-looking seventh race at Aqueduct on Saturday?
I don't even know. I mean, I look at those. Listen, as far as just picks go, Jonathon mentioned Scatback. I don't love that horse. I did pick that horse on top in the paper because I had to pick somebody, and I'll just hope that horse, his first two starts, they weren't terrible at Saratoga on the grass, and they've run on dirt since then. Maybe coming back to turf will work for her, but I don't have a lot of confidence. I would never try and talk anybody into her. I'll just say this as far as, some, other kinds of horses, just to at least, consider I'm using, as far as the first time starters go, I'm going to use the two, not because this horse has a big pedigree for turf. She doesn't basically have any. She's a courageous cat, which is fine, but all the runners from this dam who were any good were dirt horses. But Jeremiah Engelhardt is like, he's like the new Todd Pletcher with 2-year-olds. I mean, I think he's won 18 2-year-old races this year. He's won with 8 first-time starters. He had another one today, win first time out, sprinting on the grass. I'm just going to use that horse based on that alone. I have had a little bit of a thing for Straw Hat. I'm starting to think I was wrong about it, but I'll use her again. Her debut, I thought, was, sort of okay for Leah Giamatti, sort of wide, made a little bit of a late run. I thought she was, decent in that race. She didn't do a lot for me last time back on turf, but, I'll use her. Stone Factor, I think you have to use just because she has speed from the outside. She's got post 12. I don't think Johnny has any, real option but to go with her. She is fast. She doesn't finish her races, which is a real problem. But, I'll use horses like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just going to include as many in this race as I can as far as the pick 5 goes.
Wagering strategy question for you, Mike. When you're in a situation with a race like this, where you want to spread, some of these horses are going to be at the longer end of the odds spectrum, some are going to be at the shorter end of the odds spectrum, are you just going to look to use them all equally, survive in advance, hope to catch a price, or will you do anything to weight the shorter priced horses, or the longer priced horses for that matter, to have more if one of them happens to win?
Yeah, not in this case. In this case, I'm really so like up in the air with all these horses without really, to be perfectly honest. And you have a horse like Stone Factor who's 3-1, and then another horse who I like, who I'm going to use the 8, Barrel of Destiny, who's probably, I don't know, maybe 20-1 on the line. But in this situation, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I would just use all these horses, basically in equal weight, just because it's not that often that it happens, but when I say I have no idea who's going to win, I'm being serious. I mean, anybody can win this race, and I just wouldn't be surprised.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Mike, let's keep it with you to move on to our discussion of the 8th race, the Demoiselle, one of the traditional races on this last big card of the year in New York, looking at these 2-year-old fillies going long for the first time. Where are you going to end up?
Yeah, this race is pretty interesting to me. I sort of had a couple of different opinions on it, and I'm interested to hear who JK likes and what he thought of this race. The first of my opinions was that I see Wonder Godot as the morning line favorite. And well, I guess I get it. I don't really get it. I don't understand why anybody would like this horse. She had, a little bit of, inconsequential trouble in the Breeders' Cup last time. It didn't really matter. She wasn't getting anything in that race. By the time she had trouble, the race was already over. And outside post, she was off the pace and a little bit wide. All right. But I didn't see her really do that much running in that race. And I don't see why I'm supposed to like her off of any of her 3 races at Woodbine, which are fine. But I just don't get this horse. I don't really like her at all. I do think that she's going to show more speed in this race, and that could be a good thing. I just don't like her, especially if she's going to be the favorite. So I'm against her. I'm not as against Daisy, who's 5-2 on the line. But I got to be honest, I don't love her last race. I know she got a good figure for it, and I know that she was clear at the end. But you're talking about a 4-horse field where 2 horses of 2 of the 4, or there were only 4 horses who were logical in that race, and two of them just didn't run at all, including the favorite in the race for Tony Dutrow. I mean, the horse, I can't remember her name now. She finished off the board. I mean, she did no running. I think her name was Navajo.
Yeah.
She didn't do any running at all in that race at 4-5. And so this horse, got up on the lead, Old Fashioned Style, who's not a bad horse at all, went with her. This horse actually looked beat at the top of the stretch. Old Fashioned Style got, basically ahead in front of her. And then Daisy managed to fight back and win. I'll give her some credit for that, but now she's got to stretch out again. And I think there's going to be, some other pace in this race to keep her occupied. I'm not so sure I love her as one of the favorites, or I'm going to use her where I'm not going to use Wonder Godot. But I'm still going to try and beat them. And I'm going to try and beat them with 2 horses. I'm going to try and beat them with Indy Union, another Jeremiah Engelhardt horse who I think really wanted to stretch out last time and really improved once she got to do it. The horse that she beat, Pink Sands, was 1-5. She's not that good. She shouldn't have been 1-5 in that race, but still, she showed more speed. She kept up with that horse the entire way. She easily overpowered her at the top of the stretch, and she won for fun. I think this filly's pretty good, and I'm going to use her. And the other horse I'm using is John Service's other horse, the 6 Moorer Power. And this is just, we'll see what happens she's got to stretch out, and it's a big stretch out for her from 6.5 to 9. And I don't love taking horses that have to do stuff like that, but when I watched both of her first 2 starts, and she won both of them sprinting, I kept looking at her run thinking, this horse doesn't want to sprint. I think she just won those races basically on class alone. She was too good for them. But I think she wants to go longer. She gets a chance to go longer here. She should be forwardly placed. And Service actually has really good numbers. Sprinter route on dirt off of a win. He's 7 for his last 24, 29% with a 247 ROI. And of those 7 wins, 4 of them were in stakes races. So he stretches these horses out off of wins, and he gets them to come right back and run well again. And if he can do that with her, I think that she can contend in here at, probably a better price than some of the other horses we already talked about.
One of those interesting situations too, Mike, where you might be able to have a horse that has a not insignificant figure advantage as potentially the 3rd choice, or at least a square price.
True enough.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, true enough, especially for her, a horse who ran a 39. She ran a 39 by her first time out, and then to, get a little time after that race and come back and run an 85. And you're right, it is the top figure in the field on the way in.
What do you think, JK? Where are you going to land in this year's Demoiselle?
We see it a lot in the same way. I don't want to repeat every point that Mike made. There's a couple points I do want to repeat. One is that I am completely against Wonder Godot. She was out. Yes, there was a little trouble there at the 8th pole, but she was outside on that track that we all know that's where you wanted to be. So I downgrade her for that effort, even with the figure. She got a 74. To me, it's like she ran a 70 out there. And as a favorite and a Cassie horse on the dirt, God bless the Cassies, I can't get into that horse in that low of a price. She's a complete toss for me. If she wins, I lose. The interesting thing about Daisy drawn on the inside is that the only other horse, when you look at this, that could press Daisy to keep her from getting an easy lead is the other Service horse who's stretching out with IRAD while Daisy has Kendrick. It feels like we already know what's going to happen there, right? Kendrick's going to send from the rail. IRAD will take back and try to ration her stamina as a horse that's stretching out. I'm with Mike on More Power. I'm with Mike on Indy Union. Indy Union could sit a really, really good trip. I want to be against Daisy, but I'm fearful she's going to be loose. The horse that I'm going to kind of center my play around is the 7, Layla Noor for Arnold Delacour, getting Manny Franco, one of my favorite riders out there at the moment. We've talked about it on the podcast before. We've talked about it in lots of different situations, that Laurel, you do not want to be inside of horses. You do not want to be inside. This horse missed the break by 4 last time, and then was down there on the inside where you don't want to be. It was an off-the-turf situation, but for whatever reason, if someone tries to get cute because they can read the form like we can and go with Kendrick and Daisy, I think that this 7-horse could pick up the pieces at what should be a pretty big price. So it's not the type that I would make my day around. However, it is one that I'd use in a $2 win place tournament, or one that I would definitely want to have as an A-horse in a multi-race situation because of the value. I don't think that she's as likely to win as a horse like Indy Union or More Power or Daisy. However, she's going to be 15 or 20 to 1, and I want to have her on top in the good parts of my picks if she happens to run.
If you're plugging those horses in Ticket Maker, JK, your 5, 6, and 7 are all A's for you here, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, with 5, 6, 7 is A's, and then I would use the aggressive, cute version of myself would like to make Daisy a B horse, but I think in this situation I'd have to use her as an A. I just, going a mile in an 8th when the rest of them might be going the other way. Even if she's going the other way, she might be 3 clear and still win. So she's probably one that I have to use on top as well. But I will not have Wonder Godot on a ticket.
All right, good stuff. Let's move on to the Remsen. Very curious to hear what you came up with in this spot, JK.
Let me scroll around here. So Avery Island is one of those horses where, I don't know if you remember this, people. We were out at Saratoga this summer.
Oh, I remember vividly.
We heard that Avery Island was Kieran's best 2-year-old, and so on August 19th at 3.5 to 1. I took all of my Salt and Char money and bet it on Avery Island, and the horse was like 7th, beaten 11. And then comes back and wins again. And this is a really interesting trip that I found when Avery Island won. If you watch the race, it was rainy a little bit. The horse was on the tire track the entire time. And I thought, oh, I'm so smart. I found out the only reason Avery good is because he was on the tire track the whole time. He comes back and beats me again. Avery Island is definitely my kryptonite. I have no idea what to do with that horse. Use out of fear. I think Catholic Boy is interesting. Jonathon Thomas had this horse run well at Saratoga with anticipation. And then the horse ran sneaky good in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I think maybe because the horse could be ignored a little bit at the tote board. Obviously, when you look at the class of the race, I mean, it's him and Avery Island. So I'm going to give Catholic Boy a little bit of a shot. I wish that we knew more workout wise. I wish that our DRF Clocker crew was hanging around Belmont. I'm sure they're resting in after their Breeders' Cup exploits, but I'd like to know how the horse is training on the dirt. But I think Catholic Boy is one that could present a little bit of value. And like I said, I have a little bit of a jockey crush on Manny Franco.
Mike, where do you stand in this one?
I do. I like the favorite. I like Avery Island. And I feel JK's pain with this horse, who did get bet hard at Saratoga, and didn't run that well, but it was just, when you go back and look at that race, first of all, the horse that won it, just a wicked fast Asmussen horse who came blasting out of the gate and wired the field. And Avery Island just sort of looked like a horse who didn't really want to sprint. And that's, what his pedigree suggests as well. I mean, he's bred to be a horse who wants to go longer. And as soon as they stretched him out, he really improved, and he improved pretty quickly. I like both of his last 2 races, and I know he's got to go a mile and an 1/8 this time in 2 turns for the first time, which could be problematic, especially at a short price. But I just think he's going to handle it. He's bred to handle it. And he just his last 2 wins, both of those wins, the last 1/8 of a mile, to me, he just seemed like he was just even, still getting stronger. I think this horse is going to be fine with distance. And he's, sort of already proven as a graded stakes winner. And I just sort of look at the rest of the field. And while I do think there are some potentially good horses in here, I think you might get a couple of runners out of this race who actually turn out to be really good. Right now, there's just nobody I'm that interested in betting against with a horse like Avery Island in here. So I'm going to sort of lean on him. I'm going to take, if I, my backups aren't going to be, it's not going to be Catholic Boy, who I do think is a good horse, but he's not my kind of horse. I don't really want him on dirt for the first time in this race, especially if he's, second or third choice in the race. I don't really need him in this race. I would rather use the two horses, the two maidens coming out of that October 25th race, Triple Dog Dare and El Catam. I think they're both potentially really good horses, and I thought they both ran fine in that race. It was a fast pace, yes, and they were off it, and they were closing at the end. But they're just both so lightly raced. They both have, nice pedigrees. You look at, I wouldn't say Triple Dog Dare has a nice pedigree because the painters, to me anyway, I haven't really seen that many good ones. But they paid a lot of money for this horse based on how he's bred, and he's run well in both of his starts. He totally blew the start first time out and ran a lot better than it looks. And then he was good last time. I think they both have a chance to be good. I don't want to bet either one of them to win in here at a some kind of shortish price, but I'm going to use both of them. And then if I go one step beyond that, it won't. Vouch is a little interesting. The 8, he was really impressive, winning his debut around 2 turns at Laurel. He just breezed around the track with a 72 buyer, and he's got a decent pedigree himself. But if I back up, instead of using him, I'm going to maybe throw in the number 1 Bandito. He beat a bad field off the turf race at Keeneland in the slop last time, but he won easy. Set a really comfortable trip in there, just tracking along. It was 1 mile and an eighth, so I think he'll get the distance. They've bet this horse in both of his starts for Dale Roman. So I just felt like if I was going to use a longer price in this field in a multi-race wager, it's going to be Bandito.
Makes sense. Try to, at least on some backup tickets, get some prices in there. I apologize, JK, if this is the worst type of red boarding, and I apologize if I was holding out on you, but my biggest memory of the Avery Island thing was the horse walking by and being this, relatively big, long thing that just wanted absolutely no part of the 6 furlongs that day. And I think it's no surprise that we've seen him come into form as the distances have gotten longer, and would also be no surprise to see him improve one more time.
Your cell phone must have been broke that day. You didn't. You
weren't there sitting with
Might have mentioned it.
I'm sure I was over there.
I thought you were there. That was my memory, but it's a sieve at this point, so you can't.
I was probably getting a milkshake. The other 2 horses that I'm going to use a little bit is Biblical, who's a half to Prince of the Silmar. He's already run 1 mile and an eighth, so and it's Todd. So what else do you need to do with that? He's already got 1 mile and an eighth. It's so bred to go longer. And then like Mike said, I like Vouch as well on the same premise that we talked about. He was inside speed down on that rail at Laurel. That 364 days of the year, the rail is not where you want to be.
Arnaud Delacour getting some love from you, JK, for Saturday at Aqueduct. If he has a big day, it sounds like you will too. But just to be clear, those are horses you'd have more as like B horses in the ticket maker formula.
No, I think those are I'm going to use Avery Island as A. I just wanted to tell the painful story of the horse. Catholic Boy is one that I would use as an A. And then I would think that Biblical and or Voucher are ones that I would use underneath. I think those 2 on a class edge alone deserve a little bit more of your investment if you're playing a multi-race bet.
All right, fair enough. And you can get away with that kind of spreadiness in a pick 5 if you're narrow early, as we've discussed, and as well as if you're narrow late. I know who you like in this race, Jonathon, so we'll go back to Mike and have him start us off with his thoughts on this year's Grade 1 Cigar Mile, last Grade 1 in New York for 2017.
Yeah, I'm on pins and needles over here waiting to hear who JK's going to single. I don't know. One thing I will say about this race is that for some reason, and maybe JK can, still don't know who his pick is, but I don't like Sharp Azteca in this race, and I'm just going to be against him. And I know that he can win. I'm going to use him in the pick 5, but I'm going to try and beat him in this race. I know that he was towards the inside in the Breeders' Cup. I still don't like that loss from him. I think that's a race he was supposed to win. That pace was not fast. I don't think he's supposed to lose to the horse that he lost to. And I think if you start picking apart his form a little bit, he's clearly a good horse, but slow pace Kelso in a race he basically couldn't lose. Slow pace Monmouth Cup in a race that he absolutely couldn't lose. mile where he ran fine, but again, not a fast pace for that kind of a race. In a race where nobody closed, and he winds up second best. And his only other win this year, slow pace, Gulfstream Park back in February, on a track that favors his running style. I don't know. I'm having a tough time buying into this horse as the favorite, especially when American Eyes is supposed to be able to go with him. I can't imagine they're shipping American Eyes over here to run in a Grade 1 race, and they're not going to send him off towards the front in here. I'm going to try and beat Sharp Azteca in here. I picked Practical Joke. Everybody sort of knows the story with Practical Joke by now. He wants one turn. I think he's probably better one turn. He's fine around 2 turns. He's obviously better around 1. He's supposed to have pace to run at in this race. I actually don't even think he ran that poorly in the Breeders' Cup last time. I think Rosario made a little bit of a mistake in that race. I think from post 10, he anticipated it was going to be a fast pace before the gate opened. And so that's how he rode this horse. He took him directly back and angled over towards the inside, and gave away a lot of position in the race where, if he had just come out of there running a little bit just to see what would happen, he probably could have got more forward. And I think it would have been closer at the end. I actually felt like he ran deceptively well to be 4th in that race and just missed 3rd. And he's just better around 1 turn, and he's going to have pace in here. And I'm just going to take him on top because the horse that I'm conflicted about is Seymour Dini, who I've always liked. I've liked him from the start. I've always felt like he was going to be a good horse for Linda Rice, but I don't know what to do with his last race. I keep watching it, and I don't know what happened, and I don't want to bet him off of that performance where he stopped running for about a 16th of a mile like he was going to be eased, and then ran again at the end when the pace fell apart. I don't know. I still think he's a good horse. I'm going to use him in the pick 5. Basically, for the pick 5, my main uses are the 1, the 2, and the 8. And I'm against Sharp Azteca. If I was going to throw a longer price, then I might throw Beasley in. But I'm basically going to try and get through it with 1, 2, and 8.
I love it, Mike. You've made my job easy. I'm going to get some popcorn, and for the rest of the show, you two can fight about Sharp Azteca.
Go ahead.
Jonathan, take it away.
Yeah, no, I love Sharp Azteca in here. And here's the thing: he's one of those horses. I haven't been doing this as long as some other people, so maybe my reference is a little bit too new school. But he's a little game on dude-ish to me, where his advantage is going fast and gutting other horses. And when he goes slower paces, I don't hold that against him for not. That's his weapon. That's what makes him so good. And I think that in a race where he has to really run early and the others have to run too, I think he's even more dangerous. I think this is like the most colossal upgrade in rider ever going to Javier. No offense to Paco for president, but I even said to Pete after the Breeders' Cup, I just said, I wonder if we have a different rider here if Sharp Azteca holds off Battle of Midway. And so he's inside last time. There's a huge upgrade there. His figures, he just runs the same figure every time, and every one of them is faster than the rest of these on certain scales. Obviously, not maybe not every buyer. But Sharp Azteca is my ice cold single here. I'm going to use some horses underneath. I'm going to use Mind Your Biscuits. It seems like he's kind of coming back into form, and his race at Saratoga kind of made everyone have a tummy ache after what we'd expected from him. But from all accounts, he wasn't obviously doing that well at that time, and seems like maybe he's rounding back into form, and what a neat horse he is. Seymour Dini is another one that I'm going to use just off the big figures, and it was a very weirdly run race last time, but I'll give him another shot. I'm completely against American Eyes. If someone's going to win on the front end, it's going to be Sharp Azteca, in my opinion. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Summer Revolution. The horse is always meant to be something kind of nice. I had a note that he was a stake horse after his second start. Then kind of things fell apart for him. Seems like he's kind of going back in the right direction. Rudy's won 20 races in the last 30 days. I think it's something like 30-40%. But 20 races in the last 30 days. Things are going in the right direction for the Rudy Rodriguez barn, and I would imagine Summer Revolution will get a little trickle down there. I'm kind of against Practical Joke a little bit, as being one of my favorite singles of the entire year in the Allen Jerkins. He got a perfect trip that day, And I feel like people bet him last time and are betting him this time with that race visually in their mind. And I think that was an advantageous trip with a perfect setup with Tocqueville. And so I get it, and he might win, and I might use defensively. But I'm gonna go strong on Sharp Ass Tekka, and I think that he'll continue to prove that he's a top-notch miler.
That's certainly a contrarian idea on the pace, JK, that you think, Mike's certainly right about what these paces have been this year for Sharp Ass Tekka, but the idea that going faster could actually see him to better effect. It's such an odd idea. Mike, I want to pick your brain about it. Do you think there might be anything, it might be anything to that idea? Is that something you've ever considered, that he could actually be better going faster early?
I'm not totally against that idea. As a matter of fact, I think it's a smart thing to do with horses that are really fast, is to let them be fast. I don't know that I think it necessarily bears out in his PPs, because basically all of his wins are when he's loose on a relatively slow pace. And all of his losses, not that he ran poorly in any of them, the Woody Stevens comes to mind from last year. The Dubai race comes to mind from earlier this year, where, when he's forced on the lead and he goes fast, he's really game. He runs really well, but he doesn't win. So I don't know if it's borne out in his PPs, but I agree with the general sentiment of, you're a speed horse and you're fast, use your speed and go to the lead and go fast. And, by the way, again, I don't think he has any choice but to go fast in this race, because I can't imagine American Eyes is shipping over here, stretching out to a mile and not trying to make the front in here. Maybe he's not fast enough to do it, but I got to believe Bejarano's trying for the lead with that horse. And so Sharp Ass Tekka, he's going to have to go fast in this race to win. And so we'll see if he can do it. Castellano, is it a positive rider change? I think it is a positive rider change. Castellano is one of those guys who I think he'll look at this race and say, I'm going. And I think he's going to go fast in this race, and we'll see if Sharp Ass Tekka is up for it.
JK, let's pause on that idea of the jockey change. Paco Lopez going to be crossing you off his holiday card list after what you're saying. What is it about Castellano that you think, in all seriousness, suits Sharp Ass Tekka as opposed to what we've seen with Paco in the irons, certainly at the dirt mile?
I could be wrong about this, but and maybe I am. So if someone knows, tell me. If there was a bench press contest between Javier and Paco, I'm pretty sure that Javier would be 1-2, wouldn't he?
The PTF Sportsbook doesn't have those kind of wagers, but it doesn't sound great.
He doesn't have those. I just think he's stronger than Paco. I love that Paco is so aggressive. I bet Paco all the time when I see him on horses, because I know he's going to be on the front end, and that's my handicapping. I'm looking for horses that are forward. I just wonder, when push comes to shove, when Sharp Ass Tekka is out there throwing 22s and 45s and is getting a little leg weary late, I just want someone who is perceived to be a better finisher. Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Javier is also the kind of guy that might try to get cute and rate the horse. I'm hoping that Jorge gives him the instructions to not do that. But Javier is the type, if I'm going to pick on a jock, I'll pick on him too. He is the type that could rate me out of there, and I could be sitting third and I've got no shot. So, it's nothing against Paco. When he gets a little bit late after going so fast, he's going to need a little bit of a pick me up. And I think that Javier is the one that would provide that better pick me up.
Now, I want to share Mike's opinion here, and I want to do the facial hair bet on Sharp Ass Tekka, but here's the thing that's holding me back from doing it. For me, the bias from the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup was, it seemed pretty apparent. Everybody's been talking about it. My mom mentioned to me over Thanksgiving dinner, what did you think of that dead rail over the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup? And she's not even a horse player. But for me, Sharp Ass Tekka was pretty much the horse. I'd heard other people say that to that point, but Sharp Ass Tekka was the horse. I know he wasn't on the rail, but I felt like he spent enough time on the two path that he, for me, was the horse that made me think that that's not where you wanted to be. And I'm just having trouble opposing him with any enthusiasm because of the potential for upgrading him for being on the inside. Is that any kind of concern to you, Mike, in your opposition of Sharp Azteca, that you might be able to, add 5 to the figure he ran there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would hesitate to add too much to the figure no matter what, just because it's hard for me to believe that Battle of Midway could have run that much faster. But maybe I just totally misread Battle of Midway. I don't know. It does me back because I'm with you. He wasn't right on the rail, but I guess if you want to say he was close enough to it that it had to affect him somewhat. Yes, it does hold me back, and it does make me feel. Listen, and it's not like I don't think he can win. I know that he can win, and as a matter of fact, he's probably the most likely winner of the race. I don't know. I'm not as big a believer in him as some other people are, and JK's not the only one. I know several other people who just really, really like this horse and think he's really good, and I've never really looked at him that way. But we'll see. I mean, the rail thing is one of those things that's keeping me from, just wanting to totally toss him out of the pick 5. I think I'm going to have to cover him at least somewhere in my pick 5 play, but I'm really trying to beat this horse as the favorite.
Maybe a defensive type use, Mike? Is that what you're thinking?
What's that?
Like a defensive.
He's one of those. Defensive use. I mean, he's one of those, where 7th race aside, where Jameson and Ginger has to win, and the Demoiselle has to be more power into Union, and then I can have Sharp Azteca. But if it's anybody else, then I'm probably not going to be alive to him.
Is there any thought to the possibility that Practical Joke will go off favored?
I'd be surprised if I don't think he's going to be some kind of great price. I think he'll be the second choice in this race. I'd be surprised if he was the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, that would mean Sharp Azteca was dead.
The Chad thing, right?
Yeah. Well, also, I think, and the one thing that surprises me, JK, about your dismissing Practical Joke is you pointed out the setup he got in the Jerkins. Well, why isn't he going to get a great setup here? I mean, I think he's got the best punch of the horses who are going to have position. If the speed shipping in the form of Americanize is enough to keep Sharp Azteca honest, like, why couldn't this set up for Practical Joke beautifully again?
Oh, no, it absolutely could. I just don't let me see if I've never said this in a long sentence before. I don't like betting horses that should get the same trip that led to their best dressed up performance. I don't want to bet that he's going to get that awesome trip that the setup that he got last time, and he's going to be much shorter this time, and that Chad money's going to come, especially because everyone's going to talk about he's back to one turn. Everyone's going to know that the pace is going to be fast. I mean, he's going to be a wise guy horse to a certain extent if you can have a 7-2 wise guy horse. I think a lot of people are going to try to be on him.
Yeah, he'll be shorter than 7-2. I agree with that. I agree with that. Unless there's some really negative story floating around about if Sharp Azteca isn't the favorite, it's one of those things where I might think there was signal in that betting, and it would might make me worry a little bit about Sharp Azteca. So it'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. We've got a minute here. Let me see if there's anything from the audience that we want to touch on. We did have a question about if Sharp Azteca might benefit from a more strategic ride from Castellano than the typical Paco Dead Send. JK, you already said that's not what you want to see. Maybe you could quickly explain why you don't want to see Sharp Azteca rated.
Yeah, no, I think if he's not like trying to gut the other horses, it's going to happen what happened in the Breeders' Cup. He's going to get overtaken by a horse who can close a little bit better. I think his advantageous trip is to gut the other speed and get the other horses off the bridle. I heard Dale Roman say it a long time ago in an interview. I think it was talking about Shackelford. When I'm going fast on the front end, the horses that are closers and stalkers are going faster than they want to go to. And so you can gut a horse who's 10 off of it because he's trying to stay within 10 lengths, what he feels is his comfort zone, but he's actually going much faster. He's throwing his late kick, and now he's got a lot more work to do. So No, I want him to go. I don't want Javier to get cute. I just want Javier's muscle to finish.
We'll delve into that pace idea a little bit deeper tomorrow on the podcast. It is worthy of exploration, but we're just about out of time. Did have one more question that I thought was worth addressing. What do we think about the distance for Mind Your Biscuits? Any opinion, Mike, on how the one-turn mile will suit this runner?
I guess I'd be a little worried about it, but at least it's a one-turn mile, and I think that is going to be okay for him. You know, I don't want to try and translate it too closely. He is a really good 7 for a long horse, so you would hope that the one-turn mile works for him. I think he's a contender. He's one of the horses I'm definitely using in this race. I think he's a good horse. I like the way he bounced back a little bit in the Breeders' Cup last time. Do I love the idea of a one-turn mile for him? I don't love it. Just because he's just too much of an unknown, but I think he's going to get it, and I think he's going to run well in this race. I'm definitely using him.
All right, that is all the time we have. I want to thank our sponsor, NYRA Bets. Get involved in this NYRA Bets Late Pick 5. Go to NYRABets.com for a slew of offers and promotions. Lots of great and creative stuff going on there, and we thank NYRA Bets for sponsoring not only this show, but a series of shows throughout the year, and hopefully we can get back together with them in 2018. I want to thank Mike Beer and Jonathon Kinchen for their time. Really great hanging out with you guys and getting your thoughts on this Late Pick 5 sequence. Most of all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you came in late and you want to catch a replay, you can do so, drf.com/YouTube. Lots of other great handicapping content there as produced by DRF. A host of excellent stuff. You should definitely spend some time and check it out. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale, and you've been watching a handicapping session produced by DRF.com.